Welcome to day 61, Becoming Peace Mini Meditation and Inspiration. The name of today's session is Flying Too Close to the Trees, where we're taking a look at what it might mean to your well-being when we get too close to the trees when we're flying through this journey called life. This space is being held for you as a faith-based rest stop for your soul, where you can drop that heavy backpack you're carrying on your shoulders and set it down for a rest. We hope through the process you not only feel peace, but actually start to become peace today. Go ahead and grab your notebook because God will deliver dictation through this session today. Be prepared to write down your thoughts and impressions as they come to you. I always want to get the best benefit I can from my meditations, so I actually include an essential oil with each practice. And this week, our essential oil spotlight is doTERRA's Serenity, the Restful Blend. It's a magical mix of lavender, cedar wood, coriander, ylang-ylang, marjoram, Roman chamomile, vetiver, and sandalwood essential oils, with hints of tonka bean and vanilla absolute. You can also diffuse it to help you find sweet dreams in a good night's rest. So go ahead and grab your essential oil bottle and place one drop in your hands and rub your palms together. Then cup your palms 6 inches away from your nose and breathe in through your nose. Hold and release through your mouth. Continue this practice as we begin to move forward. Now, let's slow things down. Take another deep breath in and out. Good. Make sure you're sitting comfortably in a chair or on the floor. Rest your feet comfortably and with your head free, close your eyes and continue deep breathing. Enjoy floating deep inside your soul for answers today. When you quiet the mind, you're actually opening up the channel for God to communicate with you at a deeper level. So, be aware and mindful of the gentle impressions that come to your heart as you hold this space for yourself today. Let's take a deep cleansing breath in. And out. Good. I want you to imagine for a moment you're flying in a small plane. There are 3 of you on board and 1 extra with the pilot who's flying the plane. You see a mountain up ahead and the pilot adjusts the altitude you're flying to compensate for the mountain range in front of you. He scales the mountain by increasing the distance between the plane and the mountain. The grandeur and the beauty that you see from this perspective in the air is unparalleled. Well, while sitting in the front seat of the plane, you become very grateful for that flight stick that the pilot's holding, which increases the height at which you're flying. The pilot chooses to stay a very good considerable distance away from the mountain and away from the trees. And you appreciate this on this beautiful flight. Once, I remember flying with my dad. We were traveling back home on one afternoon, and suddenly a really bad storm was right in front of us. The wind started whipping the tail of the small plane back and forth. All these warning lights and warning sounds started beeping. And I noticed that my dad increased the altitude of the plane. My mind went back to the days that he told me in my youth to never fly too close to the trees. My dad was making sure in that flight we were on together that we had plenty of space between us and the ground to correct errors or be able to eject from the plane with lots of space so we could think about what we were doing. In reality, the flight was scary, and our plane was really tossed to and fro in the storm, and I have never flown in a small twin-engine plane since that day. Thanks to his skill and his finesse and the smart decisions he made as a pilot, we made it home safely. My dad would tell me almost every day when I was growing up, "Heidi, don't fly too close to the trees." At first, I didn't even know what he was talking about. And then certain circumstances in my life became difficult and I grew into a teenager. My dad, even still today, gives me the lecture about not flying too close to the trees of life. To make a plan, stick with it, and don't depart from it. This is very, very wise wisdom. And if you think about flying the plane too close to the ground, there's not much room to correct or fix any issues or errors that might come up. If you're flying too close to the trees, there's power lines, there's birds, and possibly even buildings that could really inhibit and get you into some trouble with not much correction time. Well, this concept applies to our lives in many, many ways. Make sure you have plenty of resources stocked up with lots of preparation and a game plan when difficult situations arise in your life. Not having a plan, not being prepared, not thinking things through is just like flying close to the trees. So let's look this over. In what ways do you fly too close to the trees? How does that make you feel? What can you do to make sure you have more altitude underneath you today? What choices or activities help you fly at a really high altitude? Google says that the accepted metric of altitude needs to be at least 500 feet above the terrain or obstacle in question. Really? Only 500 feet? What if you have an engine failure? Would you rather be at 20,000 feet? 20,000 feet is only about 3.7 miles. I would imagine you could fall pretty fast, 3.7 miles. Maybe you adopt the right flying altitude as 40,000 feet, leaving you about 7 miles instead of only 3.5 miles. You get to choose. What cruising altitude would you like to adopt? In any aspect of our life, you can choose a cruising altitude. Maybe the 40,000 foot choice is never viewing pornography or staying away from cocaine. Just never choosing to consume it so you don't have to ever deal with the consequences. Or maybe your 40,000 foot cruising height is setting really healthy, good, constructive boundaries. Remember, we talked about every choice you make is taking you a step closer to Christ or taking you away from Him. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about this concept of flying too close to the trees and maybe putting a plan in place of you flying way above the trees in a very safe altitude and what that looks like inside of your own life. I'll mind the time until you hear a soft bell. Take a deep breath. Good. Okay, let's come back now. Continue deep breathing, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Another breath in and out. Good. And as you float back to consciousness, allow yourself to surrender to the peace you've just experienced. Go ahead and cup your hands close to your nose again and take another deep breath in. An important thing to remember is meditation is simply just sitting in silence and allowing the Spirit to speak to you. It's a chance to receive messages as you hold the space for Him in the silence. So take a few moments and write down the thoughts and feelings and impressions you had today at the end of this program. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 7 and 8, we read, "But whatever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What's more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ, Jesus, my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage that I may gain Christ." And this is very applicable for this week's theme. From an earthly perspective, Saul had every reason to brag. He was a Jew from the tribe of Benjamin, and as a Pharisee, he had meticulously kept the law. Saul had education and determination. The world was at his fingertips. Then Saul met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and in an instant, everything changed. He became the Apostle Paul, and later declared that knowing Jesus was greater than any worldly achievement or birthright. Saul decided to burn the ships of his former life. What achievements do you value? Our accomplishments here on earth are of no consequence unless we're in the service of His name. A relationship with Christ surpasses everything we've ever done. May we be willing to lay aside those things that only have temporal value in order to gain eternal riches. Knowing the Lord is the greatest treasure we could ever possess. Well, my prayer for you this week and today is that you feel more peace and groundedness in your life as a result of this time you set aside every day. It helps to share our message of peace when you hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you know someone who could use today's message, please share this content. Also, please check the show notes below for lots of great information, along with this week's suggested music track, Burn the Ships by For King and Country. Well, it is about that time again. Thanks for showing up for you today, and be sure to give yourself a high five and a pat on the back. And remember to take in more light today than you did yesterday. Bye for now.